Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. The relationship of Anakin Skywalker and Obi Wan Kenobi remains one of the most powerful stories in all of Star Wars. From their first appearance together to their brutal showdown on Mustafar to their last battle on the Death Star. These two embody the struggle of what it meant to be a Jedi. In their most recent Kenobi TV series, spoiler alert, wait for it, we see a flashback sequence between Anakin Skywalker and Obi Wan Kenobi back during the Republic days that mirror the current day battle they're about to fight on Jabin. In the flashback, Anakin is still sporting a Padawan braid, so it's most likely before or immediately after the Battle of Geonosis. The Padawan and the Master duel each other, and their moves eerily remind me of the duel that they will one day have on Mustafar. The duel starts out friendly enough, but soon Anakin gets right to business and begins pushing Obi-Wan back with his speed and power. Obi-Wan warns his old apprentice about the mistakes of becoming too aggressive. Not only is it against the Jedi way, it's also against his master's way. Obi-Wan Kenobi has always been a strategist. He always believed in planning before striking, looking before jumping. Anakin would continue to use his speed and strength, however, to overwhelm his master, and he manages to get him on his knee in a defensive position. The fury and the aggression in his moves are brutal and powerful, and we see a glimmer of the dark side in Anakin that will one day consume him. There seems to be no hope for Obi-Wan Kenobi at all. This is a really important part of the relationship that isn't examined all that often. Even though Obi-Wan Kenobi is the master, by the time Anakin Skywalker reaches his teenage years, he was already considerably more powerful in the Force than his master. An outsider looking in might question, what does Obi-Wan Kenobi have to offer Anakin in the first place? And I would respond that the person asking that question doesn't really understand the first thing about Anakin. You see, Anakin never needed someone to train him on how to fight. He was a fantastic student of the lightsaber forms. After he lost his arm to Count Dooku, he doubled his efforts and learned from his mistakes, which tells us that Anakin is a self-sufficient individual who learns from his mistakes. This shouldn't be surprising, of course. As a child, Anakin used that same type of dedication and discipline to become one of the best pod racers on Tatooine. What Anakin needed was something that has escaped him for most of his life. You see, Anakin is a relatively simple character. No matter how many different fan breakdowns you read about his personality, everyone basically comes up with the same conclusion. This was a very lonely individual who was looking for a sense of security and also love. This is a boy raised as a slave by a single mother who immaculately conceived him. At a formative age of 9, he was taken away from his mother by one of the best takers in the galaxy, Qui-Gon Jinn. He would lose connection to everything he had and in turn be introduced into a relatively cold and uncaring Jedi Order system. From day one, he was labeled as different. He was the chosen one, and several of the Jedi Council's higher-ups treated him with suspicion, including Mace Windu, who was always giving him the death stare and trying to find shatter points in his face that he could smash. Now, I'm not a psychologist, but I did once go through an airport bag scanner head first. And so my assessment here is that Anakin's so-called extremely emotional personality is just the result of a lack of stability he experienced through his childhood and then into his preteen years. When we first meet Anakin Skywalker on Tatooine, he was an incredibly sweet and nice boy who went completely out of his way to help a bunch of strangers he knew nothing about. This part of Anakin still existed when he was an adult. During the Clone Wars, he would go to extreme lengths to save those who he cared about and those who served beneath him.
I'm gonna go help them out. No, they are doing their job, then we can do ours.
But at the same time, a series of horrific events that included him being a slave, a child soldier, witnessing his mother die, all severely traumatized him. When we're children and facing trauma or any kind of discomfort or fear, we generally retreat to our parents because they are a safe space. It's here that we learn how to deal with these frightening emotions in a very healthy and non-destructive way. There's nothing more tragic than a child having to go through these experiences by themselves, alone and afraid. I believe that Anakin's, quote, emotional temperament was a result of all of this lack of care he experienced once he was removed from his mother. The reality was the second that Qui-Gon Jinn broke the rules and brought a 9-year-old into the Jedi Order, they should have kept breaking the rules to make sure that Anakin would succeed in the Jedi Order. The Jedi rule of only accepting newborns is actually tied to other rules like no attachments. The reason why Anakin was initially denied entry was because they knew a 9-year-old would already have preconceived notions of the world, they would have connections to their parents, they would have connections to friends, and they wouldn't be as easy to mold. I mean, sure, it's just as tragic to remove a newborn from their mother, but that newborn really won't remember as much as a 9-year-old will. The Jedi knew about these potential issues, and so the first move that Obi Wan Kenobi should have made was to make sure that Shmi Skywalker was safe and out of immediate danger. As a slave, she certainly was not. I mean, this was a bare minimum that even Qui-Gon Jinn could have immediately solved after leaving the planet. The Jedi were an extremely rich organization. He could have just sent a messenger with some credits and freed her, and then placed her in a safe location. Anakin is, after all, the chosen one. You'd think they would invest a bit more energy and time into him. After the unorthodox Qui-Gon Jinn passes away, Obi Wan Kenobi is Anakin's last connection to the Jedi Order, and Anakin really needs Obi Wan to deliver here, but instead of being what Anakin needs him to be, Obi Wan tries to mold Anakin in the way the Jedi Order wants him to, which is a disaster. We see this during the practice duel where Anakin Skywalker finally manages to disarm Obi Wan Kenobi. An expression of almost childlike joy appears on his face. But then Obi Wan cuts him with this criticism.
It's over. Your need for victory, Anakin, it blinds you.
Obi Wan is spot on with his remarks. If we're talking about just the tactics of how to duel, he's right. But more importantly, Obi Wan Kenobi's words hurt Anakin, who retreats quickly like a wounded animal. Obi Wan would proceed to prove his point by disarming his apprentice. He would finally offer some words of encouragement combined with further instructions at the end of the duel. I mean, this is the purest example of what Obi-Wan's relationship with Anakin was like. There was mutual respect and clearly even love. But ultimately, Anakin couldn't completely be himself around his master. No matter how hard he tried to live up to Obi-Wan and the Jedi's rules and codes, whenever he let a sliver of his true self appear, he was met with condemnation. There was no give and take between the Jedi and Anakin Skywalker. Anakin was the one who was forced to change. The Jedi never accommodated any of his personality quirks. This is why Anakin would keep his relationship with Padme a secret from the Jedi and Obi-Wan. This is why he would grow so close to Palpatine, who never judged him, but only accepted him for what he was. I mean, sure, Palpatine was just manipulating Anakin, but it was the Jedi who really pushed him in that direction. Obi-Wan and the Jedi were well-intentioned, of course, but they never truly understood Anakin and how they could help him. Instead, they tried to control him by limiting the symptoms of his personality, his aggression, his competitiveness, his eagerness to engage the enemy. Instead of just scolding Anakin like he was a child, which was extremely counterproductive, Obi-Wan should have addressed the root issues leading to his Padawan's behavioral issues, which mainly revolved around being abandoned as a child and separated from the people he loved, and not having a place where he felt safe and people he could be around that he felt unjudged with. Anakin wanted the unconditional love he once had from his mother. If Obi Wan Kenobi had been more flexible and allowed Anakin to occasionally contact his mother and maybe even see her and understood that this is a normal and healthy thing for a child to want, then maybe when Anakin perceived his mother to be in danger, he would have went to Obi Wan Kenobi for help, and they would have solved the situation together. Obi-Wan definitely would have stopped Anakin from murdering an entire tribe of Sand People. If Anakin trusted Obi Wan Kenobi to not judge him for choices he desperately needed to make, then maybe Obi-Wan would have been Anakin's secret best man at his wedding. And when Anakin began having visions of Padme, Obi-Wan could have been there to give him advice about the dangers of prophecies. But no, instead Anakin only had one person to turn to, and that was Palpatine, which is ultimately what led him to the dark side. What the Jedi didn't understand was that Anakin needed love the way the Jedi needed their connection to the Force. Anakin needed companionship the way that humans need air. I mean, here was a highly sensitive boy who deeply cared about everyone around him. Anakin's ability to care and love was actually the greatest source of his strength. This is what made him a powerful Jedi and an even more powerful Sith. The Jedi were not an evil organization, but rigid structures and regulations the lack of flexibility the Jedi Order preached, these are the things that always unexpectedly led to creating great evil. Anakin simply needed a family and individuals to love him unconditionally. This was the Jedi Order's greatest flaw. They couldn't wrap their heads around the fact that most people draw their greatest source of strength and courage from their loved ones. Many years into the future, it wasn't the Jedi who would save the galaxy. Instead, it was the actions of Anakin Skywalker, who despite all the things he had gone through, still found love for his son. An individual he knew nothing about really and had only met a few times, yet he was willing to sacrifice his life for him. This is the Anakin Skywalker we all know and love. And this is what the Obi Wan TV series should have been about. It should have been about Obi Wan Kenobi realizing the mistakes he made when he was Anakin's master. It should have been about Obi Wan understanding the importance of love and connection, not just for Anakin, but for himself as well. We have to remember that whole story arc with him and Satine Kryze. By watching the Lards love Luke, by watching the Organos love Leia unconditionally, Obi-Wan would have developed an understanding that Anakin still could be saved by his emotional connection to his children. This would have made Obi-Wan's sacrifice on the Death Star years later even more impactful. Perhaps they could have even added a scene where Obi-Wan Kenobi apologizes to Vader when he becomes a Force ghost. Anything that can help and chip away the armor the Sith had built around him and make Darth Vader's ultimate decision to save Luke even more impactful. Anakin Skywalker is perhaps one of the most misunderstood individuals in Star Wars history, but now that his history is more or less complete, we're beginning to understand just how tragic of a figure he really is. Anakin Skywalker was essentially a weapon and a tool used by both the Jedi and the Sith, who completely disregarded his needs and wants, which are okay things to have as a human being. But despite all of this, at the end of the day, when the galaxy needed him, he still became a hero. So there you have it, guys. That is my analysis of what Obi Wan Kenobi could have done better as a Jedi Master. And I think these scenes of him on Tatooine and so there you have it, guys. That is my assessment of what Obi Wan Kenobi could have done better as the Master of Anakin Skywalker. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think. And as usual, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy,